currently planning on leaving home and starting to live alone after spending 21 years living with my mother, who have psychologically abused me. Now to the main part. Sorry if my English is not the best. It's been a while since I wrote in English, as it's not my primary language. I, 21M, have been living with my mother for my entire life, though in different houses and countries. Throughout this years, I have suffered what I just now realize was psychological abuse. To put into context, I come from an Asian country, and when I was around 9 years old, we moved to Europe for different reasons that don't matter right now. I don't really recall many things about my life back there, overall flashbacks to different extra-scholar activities and some short trips we took. Once we came here to Europe, my mother had trouble adapting to the new language, and my sister, who was living there for a couple years, didn't help much, so the first years were a real struggle financially and emotionally speaking. I have clear memories of my mother shouting to my sister, and overall not really getting along. As soon as I entered secondary education, my mother got really involved in my academics and avoided at any cost that my grades dropped below an A, which meant what me feels like 8 hours a day of studying, punishment if I didn't achieve a perfect grade, and a constant reminder that I would be a stupid no one if I didn't get perfect grades. I still remember crying on my desk while she shouted to me to finish studying and to stop being an imbecile. This continued throughout all secondary education and got worse when my sister tried intervening in the situation, as she thought that she could take better care of me. She couldn't, but that's a story for another day. From that point, and on, my mother reminded me, my sister, and my brother, who wasn't living with us and stopped any communication towards us years ago, have been the 3 biggest mistakes she has ever made. She also started to be really controlling about my overall life. She was the one to decide what subjects I should study, what extra-scholar activities to do, and who I should be friends with. At this time, she also liked to tell me how grateful I should be for saving me from living in the shitty Asian country we were, and how good of a mother she was for doing so, and how bad of a son I was for not loving her more and not getting better grades. Even though this sounds horrible, and it was a traumatic experience, I do think that this suffer made me a better student, and now in university I do perform extraordinarily well thanks to this. But I can't avoid feeling like the only thing that stayed in my heart is the feeling of being a mistake, a burden, and not really deserving to be alive, as I had severe anxiety throughout this time and thought about ending my life multiple times. After finishing my secondary education, I wanted to enter an arts high school, as I soon realized that I wanted to pursue a career in dancing or film industry. To this, I received numerous negatives from my mother, to the point that I left home and didn't come back until days later, of sleeping in the street, and her finally realizing that she shouldn't be getting into my life this much. After that, life seemed to go for the better. I started a relationship with my now ex-girlfriend, and my mother seemed to chill a little bit and respect my space more, but her pressure to me didn't stop there, as she now started to comment on my body weight, my clothes, my gay-like aspect, and a long etc. that made me despise her even more. My sister at the time stopped living with us and cut relationship with us totally after getting hit and beat up by my mother, something that to this day I can't forget seeing, and this continues being this way to this day. My mother stopped trying to control me, but continued making me feel like I owed everything to her, and continued reminding me that she would have been so much happier if none of us were born, and that she deeply regrets our existence. At this time was the moment that she also started to cry ties my then girlfriend, telling me that she was a dumbass, a slut, and that I was stupid for being with her. Life continued on, and I started to get desensitized to the whole situation, to the point that I was sometimes living in automatic mode and have big gaps in my memories from that moment of life. My GF at the time broke up with me, and that was the moment that I realized that something was not okay with me, because even though it hurt like a bullet, I couldn't cry, didn't want to complain, and had no one to talk to. I soon realized that my mother also made me be cold as a stone, as she throughout my childhood always told me that feelings were for the weak, that crying was for the weak, and that I should be strong and independent and never show my feelings to anyone. Which made it really freaking hard for me to socialize, as I felt that I couldn't and shouldn't speak to anyone. Thanks to my own, well, I now don't feel or act this way and have come a long way to be able to currently speak freely about my feelings and to maintain a healthy relationship with my current girlfriend. Since the moment I started university, I've wanted to leave home, but my economic situation was not good until about 6 months ago when I finally started a full-time job in the film industry that is paying the apartment in which my mother and I live. The situation seemed to calm for a couple of years as I was doing freelance stuff and didn't really stay at home much, but right now I can't real bear her presence, her constant reminding of me being fatter than I was. I was literally on my bones a couple years ago from anxiety, and her criticizing my current girlfriend just made me blow up today and shout at her as I have never shouted before. But even after all this suffering, my low self-esteem throughout my life, and the feeling of being worthless that I had until not so long ago, I still feel bad for wanting to leave home and leaving her at her shitty situation. She doesn't make enough to live and isn't willing to. But finally, I think that I will do it as it affects me way too much sometimes. I really don't even care what happens to her anymore, to be honest. If she starts working more or if she has to move to a smaller apartment, I could not give less of a fuck, as I really don't feel her to be my mother or my family anymore. I don't know. I think I just wanted to tell someone about this.